Welcome to the Power Foods Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Kristy Jo, mind and body strategist and fitness nutrition specialist. You're listening to episode number 230, Binge Bye Bye Week 2 Topics. I hope you've already subscribed to the Power Foods Lifestyle blog over at powerfoodslifestyleblog.com. I'm passionate about helping you learn how to become a strategist of your own health and body using science-backed evidence, anecdotal principles proven effective in my coaching, and psychological awareness. Okay, PFL champs, let's now move into today's discussion. I am so excited to be back after a long hiatus when I had a baby. You may hear some slurping in the background. Little Aaliyah, who is now 4.5 weeks old, she is drinking a bottle. I have put off podcasting because I kept waiting for the perfect time when she would be asleep, when I would have a long section of time that I'd be able to talk with you guys. I have had so much on my mind I want to share, and as many of you mothers would know, and fathers, that time never really happened. So I finally this morning said, you know what, Aaliyah, we are going to record this together. So baby sounds and all. And I just have so much that I would like to share with you guys because the impending holiday season is right upon us. Because of the few clients I have really been blessed to continue working with during this time, which I just want to say thank you to each of them for being so kind and considerate while I am adapting to this new lifestyle myself, whether it was, getting on a call 5 minutes late because I was changing a diaper, or whether dealing with a crying baby in the middle of our call. I've had some really, really awesome clients and who've been making great progress, and it's so exciting. And so just thank you all for your willingness to let me continue adapting and growing, which that's what we all are doing in this life, is constant change. Some changes are bigger than others, like this one. So I do intend to continue podcasting. I feel extremely passionate about everything I teach, especially because I am in a state of body where I am beginning to make some changes. Those of you who follow me on Power Foods Pregnancy Instagram account, then you will know the intense focus and body image work I have done during the pregnancy. I gained at the end of the day, I can't remember the exact number, but somewhere around 40 pounds, the bulk of which was gained in the first trimester. So that was really difficult for me on a mental level. As we transition now into the postpartum experience, I do intend, if my body is willing, to be nursing and producing breast milk for a year. And so as I do desire to whittle down my body and create the new postpartum body that's right for me, I do intend to keep that milk supply. And so there is a lot of finagling of macros and calories and figuring things out that I have to do, which means that it is going to be slower than I would like. And how many of you can identify with that? How many of you can identify with, oh my gosh, it's going to be so slow, so is it even worth it to try? And how can you stay motivated to try when you don't feel that those results are giving you that new motivation? That's kind of what happens when we lose weight or we see the difference on the scale. We feel the difference in our pants or our shirts. Then it gives us that motivation to keep going. And so if that's not happening quickly, how else do you stay motivated? So that is something I would like to share with you soon. Today's biggest focus is I'd like to give you week 2 of the Binge Bye Bye discussion that we began several podcasts ago. The good news is that many of you have the original 12-week Binge Bye Bye workbook. The even better news is I am working on an enhanced version of this due to some of the coaching I've done in the past few months of some individuals that has really even further expanded the way I view emotional eating, as well as my own personal experience due to just life shifting, the pregnancy, the birth, the postpartum experience so far, that being a female, having hormonal fluctuations, that how much of this really does contribute to our emotional eating. Now, you may be well past those years in your own life, and so you're dealing with the leftovers, the remnants of that, or you may be experiencing completely new triggers, but we do know that there are a lot of those anchors that are placed along the way of our life that continue to build up and have residual impacts. So our whole goal with the Binge Bye Bye program and basically coaching series is that we begin unveiling those things that we just covered up in our lives that we never put much thought into looking at. and helping to process through. When I do put out the new expanded version of Binge Bye Bye, I'm renaming it, calling it Ending Emotional Eating. So I will continue to call it probably Binge Bye Bye, but if it's interchangeable, just know I'm talking about the old program versus the new expanded program. I'd like to start out talking about the root cause. When we find a behavior in our lives that doesn't serve us, it's important to trace it back as far as we can remember to the first memory we have that could be connected. Whenever something new, like a food, is introduced to us, the sensory details are locked into the memory center of the brain. Do you know how powerful your brain is? It has the power to hold more memory than all of the internet. It's important to realize those memories that are locked in could be conditioning you to need a response at the time your body is in a state of stress. Let's stop there because I want to emphasize this is very powerful when you realize how much the memory center of your brain is responsible for emotions and for coping mechanisms. Whenever we feel we're in an emotional eating bout, it is coping. We are coping with something, whether it is a lowered self-esteem or an emotion. Those are the primary things we are dealing with. For instance, I was working with a client once who could not give up her pizza. Try as she might, she wanted pizza every day. Upon my encouraging questioning, she discovered her earliest memory of pizza was at the age of 6 when she was adopted. Prior to her adoption, she wasn't getting very much food, and she remembered how much she loved pizza. I asked her how that made her feel. She responded, safe, comfortable, happy. We had then learned something new about her addiction to pizza. It made her feel safe, comfortable, and happy when she was in a state of stress. In other words, that is helping her cope with those emotions. Our next step was to discover what was causing her unmanaged stress in her life right now. I knew her husband had been away on work for a few weeks, and it was a necessary separation that had been difficult for her emotionally. I asked, do you see a connection here between these feelings of needing to feel safe, comfortable, and happy? She nodded as the tears streamed down her face. She had finally made the connection to her pizza addiction that she never understood before. Now, just because we make the connection and identify the root cause of our food addictions, it doesn't mean the problem is solved. Instead, it means we are now aware and can start to be on the lookout for triggering emotions and thoughts. Additionally, we may find that the root cause isn't always a situation, but a person and what they said or did. There may be a food or multiple foods you eat due to the fact that someone you love used to always eat them. There may be a food or multiple foods you even fear because someone told you a fact about them that you didn't have the context to place correctly in your brain. Forgiving all those who contributed to your current programming around food and your body is a critical step in this journey. Forgive them for their actions. Forgive them for their role in creating the addiction you are learning to manage. Forgive them for their intentional or unintentional transfer of incorrect information to you. And most of all, forgive yourself for allowing yourself to be influenced and conditioned from those who weren't able to have your best interest at heart. As I coach individuals, some of the important questions that need to be answered revolve around the 4 agreements. Now, you guys may have heard me talk about this a lot, or you may be new to everything I do here at Power Foods Lifestyle. And so this is referring to a book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The 4 Agreements. And his whole premise is that these 4 agreements we make when broken, and we undo these little expectations of ourselves or habits, that's the key to blissful, joyful living. As I have studied these for years and read and reread and reread this book and sought to apply these principles in my own shifting life, I can absolutely say that they are, without a doubt, very powerful. So let me remind you what each of these agreements are. Number 1, be impeccable with your word. So basically, do what you say you're going to do and follow through with that, whether it's accountability to yourself, what you say you're going to do that only you know about, or whether it's accountability to other people. You say you're going to get that paper done, you're going to send that card, you're going to do your laundry today. It could be anything. Be impeccable with your word. Number 2, don't make assumptions. That when we have any incoming information from other people or situations, we are all pretty expert at making assumptions. And there's a difference between an assumption and a discernment. And so we want to be very mindful that we are willing to get clear especially on things that bother us or that impact us emotionally and send us into a little bit of a tailspin. If we're not willing to get clear and go to an individual or to figure a situation out and to learn if that's truly what that person intended or something, then we must drop it. And that is a powerful agreement that we need to break, that we will make assumptions. That's the agreement we seem to have made somewhere deep in our subconscious mind. So break it and drop any assumptions unless you're willing to get clear. Because then it's not an assumption, it's a fact. If you have true evidence, someone absolutely said that, then it's evidence, it's not an assumption. Number 3 is don't take anything personally. This is, okay, let's say that somebody did say something about you, or there was a situation that was out of your control and you are blaming yourself or victimizing yourself or anything like that, or you feel that there was malintent from another individual. When you break the agreement to take things personally, you experience a new freedom. And that is done when you say that nobody has the right, nobody has the privilege of impacting your self-esteem. And one of the best quotes I think ever in the existence of this world is, "It is a fool who takes offense when offense was not intended." Think about that. Someone didn't mean to hurt your feelings. They didn't intentionally say that. Yet you took it personally and tailspin down and emotionally self-destruct and allow the critical voices in your mind to just disintegrate you. But here's the rest of that quote. "It is a greater fool who takes offense when offense is intended." You're going to give someone that power over you to impact the way you feel about yourself, and they totally wanted that. That's completely handing over every ounce of power and boundaries that you have or had as an individual. So when we stop taking things personally, we take back our power and decide our own emotions rather than simply allowing other people to come in and impact us. And the 4th is always do your best. When you do your best, you don't have the ability to judge and to use all the shoulds and the expectations, the unmet expectations, to sabotage yourself and to feel completely unable to accomplish things. And so those 4 agreements, often when we work on those daily, whether it's putting an alarm on your phone, reminding you to do a quick diagnosis of your day using those 4 agreements, whether it's a post-it note on your computer monitor at work. I've had many people do that. In fact, once in a while, I'll come across somebody at their house or their office, just a friend or family member or somebody that I interact with a little bit more in person, and I see the post-it note and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. You are doing a great job when you put that reminder up for you to constantly see something on your fridge, something, maybe the screensaver on your phone, just somewhere that you're going to be reminded of it. This is going to help you with any emotions that are triggering that root cause that might have a connection to a memory center in your mind of coping with food or achieving a different emotion, like switching from a stressful state into a joyful state or an unsafe state into a safe state. So that's something to be mindful of. And I hope you are enjoying Aaliyah's little snores. She is now asleep and she is the creakiest door you'd ever hear. It's adorable. I wish you could see her right now. Okay, so some of the things I'd like to walk you through. So please pause this podcast after I ask each question. Write it down unless you have the workbook yourself. This is a journal entry that you need to make, and you need to take the time to think through each of these questions. That is the power of your own self-discovery. So the first one. What is your earliest memory of binging or overeating that you can remember? And please remember that binging, overeating, emotional eating, that gets to be defined by you. There is no universal term that defines what these are. And so anything that you feel is to those levels of using those words, then go ahead and that's what we're addressing. Next question. Who are 3 people that may have contributed to the way that you view your food and your body? What food or foods bring a feeling of happiness or joy to you most? What unmanaged stress in your life may be leading you to need that happiness through foods? So basically, I want you to even go deeper on that. What's going on currently in your situation with work, family, hobbies, any other extracurricular activities, children, extended family? What's going on currently? Not last week, not last month, not last year, but right now, today, that might be impacting you needing to escape through food. I am learning that I may have conditioned myself to believe that. So this is digging deep into what have you come to believe about who you are, or your worth, or what you're capable of. What has been programmed into you about who you are as a person? A book I was reading last night just identified even further about the need to eat through low self-esteem. So you want to look at what is causing that low self-esteem. Is it somebody treating you a certain way? Is it not being given the promotion at work that you feel you're deserving of? Is it that your children aren't obeying, aren't following what you have taught them to do? So that makes you feel like less than. It's what you've got to dig deep into. What have you come to be conditioned to believe about yourself? What is causing a lowered self-esteem? Because we do know emotional eating, binge eating, any form of overeating does hinge directly on a lowered self-esteem. So what is causing that? The top 5 foods that you use for happiness that are not helping your health are, write them down. You need to know what they are. Next question, what do you need to forgive yourself for? Do you need to forgive yourself for certain thoughts or beliefs? For the way you handled a situation? I'll tell you, I had one of the weirdest things happen to me after giving birth in the 2 weeks that followed with my complete drop of estrogen and progesterone. What happened in my mind was almost a flashback, vivid flashback, to nearly every experience in my life that I felt I either didn't handle well, or something came that made me feel like, I was a little embarrassed of how I said something, or I said something wrong, or I could have, just anything that I felt a little bit like, man, that was a learning and growing experience. But in those 2 weeks, it didn't come back like kindly. It didn't come back in a way that was, oh, that's nice to process through. It came back like it slammed me over the face. And I had never experienced such low self-esteem because of those memories come back. And it took me a few days to process through what was happening. And I identified, I was like, okay, I know my hormones are all over the place. I know I'm completely adapting to something new. I know I'm completely deprived of sleep. My body is healing from my C-section. There's just a lot here. By the way, just a real quick insert. If you are interested in hearing my birth story, there's one place that I told it pretty in depth, and I have no problem sharing it, but just kept it in one place because then I only had to do it once. And it is in the highlights of my Instagram account, Power Foods Pregnancy. Just go click on the highlight that is birth. And that is the whole birth story, which is pretty cool. Everything went completely unexpected and in a way that I never would have wanted if I planned it, but we roll with the punches, and there we are. So going back into what I was saying, that 2 weeks, I realized that there was so much emotionally I was coping with, like the shift in my birth plan. I was grateful Aaliyah got here healthily. I am healthy, but there was still a lot of unmet expectations and feelings of frustration, and even, with a C-section, I felt like I didn't even birth my child. I felt that I was less than. I felt that I wasn't even deserving to be called a mother. Like my brain did really weird things to me. So the way that I coped with that, and like I said, it's not like I just, I know the answers, I was able to apply them right away. You have to process through to get yourself to the point where you're ready to apply these tools. And that's what I give you, is tools. Doesn't mean you're gonna suddenly apply them all, but you at least know how to approach, instead of just feel helpless in pain or emotions or habits. And the end result was that I knew I needed to forgive myself. I needed to go back through every situation that my brain threw at me, and I needed to forgive myself for the way that I handled that situation. Or I needed to forgive myself for the way that I allowed anger to get the best of me in that situation, or what I said to that individual. We all have those things in our past, but when they all come up and surface right at the same time, it's painful. And even though I felt I had worked through these situations, the memory of them was intense. And again, doesn't matter how many times we forgive ourselves for doing something, or our reactions, or whatever it be. That's why Jesus said, you forgive 7 times, 70 times. That means basically keep going. Anytime the memory pops up, you need to forgive. You need to forgive other people. You need to forgive yourself. And that is the key to blissful, joyful living, because then we're not carrying around the baggage of that. Now, it's not to say don't take responsibility and fix what we can and grow and learn from every experience. That is the intent of our life. But we work on releasing the bondage of consistent self-punishment that would debilitate us and hold us back from making further progress. So that was a huge part that I hope I always remember from this first birth of mine. Like that, I use the word birth. I'm trying to be intentional. Even though I didn't initially feel I had given birth, I felt I had the, quote, easy way out with a cesarean. I am working to not feel that way. So I forgave myself for having those thoughts. I forgave myself for letting anybody else's projection of their own thoughts influence my perspective and the way I would view my own journey and my own story. And the last part of this little journal entry for you is, how can you remember to forgive others and yourself on a daily basis? So what memory for you, or what reminder for you would work best? Is it an alarm in your phone going off at 3 p.m. saying forgive everyone that has, anyone that needs it today, anyone that has bothered you, irritated you, just gone against anything that you wanted the day to go? What do you need to do there? So when you find solutions to these questions and what you're coming to find in your journal entry, I know that you're going to feel more strength. You're going to have a little more clarity and cohesive thought around what's triggering emotional eating. Now, again, remember, just because you identify things and just because you are more aware, it doesn't instantly mean you're going to suddenly have breakthroughs of not emotionally eating. But it means that you're going to start processing and working on the things that really matter deep in that subconscious mind. Addictive eating, addictive coping with anything that's hard for us, it is a very real thing. And so be kind to yourself. This is not simple. It's not something you should just instantly get over. Though those are the voices that often prop up in our minds, right? We tend to minimize the impact on our brains and the neurological wiring that actually these addictive measures have created. It's an outlet, absolutely. And just because other people may not deal with it, that does not minimize the extent to which you may be suffering through it. And I know this because I have so many years that was my story, and I tried to minimize it instead of work on it. And it wasn't until I began digging deep and saying there is absolute room for me to improve in my emotions and mindset and how I'm handling things that are completely, seemingly unrelated to food, but at the end of the day, they were absolutely connected. So the little nutritional principle for this week that goes with this lesson is to balance your meals with protein. Seek to balance your body with protein at every meal or snack you eat. This is a very important factor in helping to anchor your blood sugar. Without protein in the body, carbohydrates, which we just basically think of them as sugars, have far more impact on your blood sugar levels and can send it careening upward and then crashing downward. As you learned in our last lesson, this leads to physiological cravings for carbohydrates and sugars to bring the lowered blood sugar back up. A good range for protein at every meal and snack throughout the day is 15 to 30 grams. Now that's for women around 5'5" who are seeking to lose body fat. I have to always define where Power Foods Lifestyle principles are focused in that demographic, because there is always an asterisk saying exceptions always apply, because your goal may be different, where your body's at may be different, but these principles may be very good takeoff points for you to then begin learning and adapting for your body. And so eating 5 to 6 meals per day with 15 to 30 grams of protein per meal, eating a meal every 2.5 to 3 hours will help with that anchoring of your blood sugar. While this may not always be possible and your life may be way too chaotic and need more flexibility, and if you're doing a style like intermittent fasting, then of course these principles will need to be adapted, which I have many podcasts on those adaptations. But again, this is basic Power Foods Lifestyle structure. Do your best to make it happen as you learn how important it is for keeping your body balanced and to stay ahead of hunger. When you have enough protein in your body consistently, it is powerful for not letting that blood sugar drop and pulling up those cravings. Stay ahead of hunger by intentionally, proactively eating and strategically putting that protein in your body. Try lean meats like chicken breast, ground turkey, fish, and tuna. Egg whites are also great. Yes, you can eat the yolk for sure. I recommend no more than 2 or 3 in one day. And remember that 2 of those yolks equals a fat, or an F, in the Power Foods lifestyle. Other yummy meats that are good to include are elk, venison, plain beef jerky, or shrimp. Try fattier meats in less frequency, though still perfectly okay, of lean ground beef, 85% plus, ham, or sirloin. So red meat we try to eat 1 to 3 times per week. Salmon is a fatty fish, but is different than a red meat. You can eat that every single day if you'd like. That's wonderful. Non-animal proteins include tofu, plain Greek yogurt. Try to choose a yogurt that has less than 10 grams of sugar per half cup, 2% cottage cheese, or a protein powder. Make sure your protein powder is as pure as possible with no maltodextrin listed in the ingredients. But of course, that protein powder is a topic in and of itself. Of finding the right one. I will try not to tangent here because I could do a whole hour on it, and I realize I haven't done an updated podcast on protein powder since episode, I believe, 5 or 6, clear back in the beginning, which if you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher, you may not find some of the early episodes due to a technical problem we had in the transfer. But if you would like to listen to those early episodes, simply type into your internet URL, www.powerfoodslifestylepodcast.com, and you can access all of the podcasts back from episode number 1. A few other things I like. Nick sticks. These are grass-fed beef or free-range turkey sticks that are great for being on the go, as well as Epic bars. Epic, they're on Amazon or at most grocery stores. They're meat bars and sticks are a little pricier. You can buy a dehydrator, make your own protein bars out of meat. That's what I have done beginning last year. And dehydrators are under $50. They work great, and it's kind of fun to just know that you only have meat in your protein bars. And they, of course, don't last as long as the store ones because they don't have as much preservatives and sugar. But if you have the time and desire, then that can be a really good way to not only save money, but ensure the purity of those foods you are eating. So Epic bars, Nick sticks. I know there's a lot of other grass-fed options out there. So just look at your labels. Make sure that there's not much else in it other than meat. Salt is a preservative, things like that. That would be great. So I hope this has been helpful to you, thinking through the root cause and where some of these connections to emotional eating might come from. I hope you will do this journaling. It's powerful, or at least think through it. Maybe you need to go rewind the podcast again and just pause and think through, and maybe even do this with a friend and talk through. Do it with a spouse or a partner. Talk through the answers. Share. It's in that we begin to find solutions. And if you would like, then of course I'm always available for coaching and being that person for you as well. That can be really, really helpful. So I hope that you will each continue doing your best. That's all you can ask. That's the 4th agreement. Do your best. Be kind to yourself. Sometimes there are times to turn up the heat of your expectations of yourself more than others. Sometimes it's time to get to the goal of shifting body composition. Other times it's more important to focus on maintenance and emotional well-being, confidence in yourself. So the key is for you to know you and to know what it is you need, where you're at currently, and where you'd like to be, where greater happiness lies for you. That's all this life should be about, is achieving happiness and living fully and vibrantly and just enjoying. And sometimes that enjoyment is greater when we get to a goal because we're stuck in a place that's holding us back. So again, know yourself and keep making that progress. Hey Power Foods Lifestyle Champions, if you're not already, go follow Power Foods Lifestyle on Instagram to get helpful reminders, motivation, and education as you move throughout your week. There's also a Facebook group called Power Foods Lifestyle Champions. Make sure that you request to be a part of that. I'm grateful you're here. I'm grateful you're learning. If you do feel this has been helpful, give me a review. If you haven't already, write a review on iTunes. That's what helps me reach more people with this information, or share it with a friend. One last reminder, the information in this episode is provided for informational purposes and is not meant to substitute the advice provided by your own physician or medical professional. Feel free to reach out to me at powerfoodslifestyle@gmail.com.